Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. The summer is starting to wind down and people are starting to talk about going back to school. It is so crazy to me because it seems like summer just started. But before summer slips away and is completely over, I wanted to share a homemaking summer day in the life with you guys. I feel like it has been quite a while since I've actually posted one of these. So I figured now would be a good time to share before summer slips away and is completely gone. I think like most people, most of my mornings start off in the kitchen, whether I'm waiting for coffee to brew or getting breakfast ready for the boys. Usually I am tidying up in the kitchen from whatever was left the night before and starting my day off in the kitchen. I do have some broth going on the stove and I'm getting that going again this morning. This is the second day that I have that going. This is not usually something that I do in the summertime. However, my oldest has been pretty sick. He got an ear infection over the weekend and it has been quite a bit. Like his face is swollen. He cannot really talk very well because he doesn't want to move his jaw. He's having trouble eating. So he's been living off of broth, and which is so crazy because we took him to the doctor first thing Monday morning and he has antibiotics, everything in his system, but it just does not seem to be kicking in very quickly. So anyway, I was getting broth going while I was also working on the boys' breakfast, so he has something to eat when he gets up. Now that I have breakfast on the table, I got dressed and I headed out to the garden to water my plants before it gets a little too late. I wanted to get out here pretty early. I've been watering my garden twice a day, especially lately because it has been so dry. We have barely gotten any rain and it has been very, very hot. We are in the hundreds. The field-like temperatures are about 115 here this week, so it has been so hot, and I have been watering my garden really early in the morning, and then I also come out here as the sun is setting in the evening to give them more water. I mentioned in my last video how days like this that are especially hot, I will often close curtains and shades. I will cover our doors with like sheets or curtains. So if you've been here a while, during the winter time, I hung up curtains around our doors that are especially drafty that go outside, and it kept out the cold air during that time when I was super cold. I ended up keeping them up during the summertime because I figured it would be really good while it is really hot to keep out those hot drafts. So anyway, I'll walk around and I'll close those along the doors. And then whenever it is especially hot, we will also have the shades down, and we just kind of keep the house pretty dark in areas that we can at least, and keep the temperatures lower in the house. One thing I've really been enjoying this year is all of the flowers that I planted in the garden. So a lot of these are actually from those boxes that I put wildflowers in. And it's so funny because when we first planted those, we planted them from seeds. And the seeds were not really new. I think they were a year or two old. I can't remember how long we had them, but I was so excited to plant these. So we put them in some boxes right outside of our garden. And at first, my husband and I, they were coming up, and we have never had experiences with growing wildflowers before. So this is our very first year, and we were sitting there like, are these not, like, did we get duped? We thought they were weeds at first because they grew really tall before you saw any flowers. And so for a good while, we ended up thinking that they were actually weeds. And so we're like, you know what, let's just give it time. And thankfully we did, because I have gotten so many beautiful flowers from those boxes. So we are jumping back into the kitchen so I can get a head start on dinner. I am making a very, very simple, like, I want to say it's like 5 ingredients. I ended up adding a couple of other things just because I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but it is a very simple crock pot meal. And then I am making the buns to go with it. So in the crock pot, I'm going to put some barbecue chicken, and then I am making some Hawaiian rolls that I'm going to just make a little bigger into buns, and we'll put the barbecue chicken on them, and that will be dinner tonight. So I'm wanting to get started to allow the bread enough time to rise throughout the day, and obviously start on dinner in the crock pot. Now, ideally, on days like this, I don't really want to have the stove and oven going a lot. However, I figured, you know what, these don't take very long in the oven, so I'll just have something going in the crock pot, and then whenever it comes time a little later in the day to bake these, the oven won't be going too long, so I didn't think it would really warm up the kitchen, which it ended up not really doing, so I was grateful for that. But ideally on days like this, I like to keep it very simple. We'll often do like leftovers or something simple in the crock pot, something that I am not having to warm up the kitchen to make. If you're interested in trying any of the recipes I have in today's video, I'll have them listed down below in the description box for you to try out. I'm going to finish mixing these Hawaiian rolls together, and then I'll cover them, put them in a warm spot for their first rise. I love this time of year because we have an abundance of things from the garden. So one thing that we have a ton of that I cannot seem to keep up with is the tomatoes. So I have a bunch over here ripening on the windowsill. I'm going to take those and just put them into a freezer bag. My intentions are to can them for the pantry. I want to do just a bunch of diced tomatoes or tomato sauce. I did tomato sauce last year, and I really liked having that on hand. However, I keep forgetting to get the lemon juice at the store. So I'm going to just take the stems off of these, wash them, and put them into a freezer bag. I'll put them in the freezer, and I will deal with them another time. I wanted to get to all of them before they started going bad, and we are just taking so many out of the garden that I just cannot use up. So we'll put them in the freezer and get them going for later on. I'm going to throw together the crock pot portion of tonight's dinner. Now, I feel like this can be done in a lot less ingredients than what I did. I mean, I did barely any ingredients, but this is technically like a 5-ingredient dinner. I, of course, forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer, and my husband had it in, for whatever reason, these tiny Ziploc bags. So I had to rip open the bag, put that in the freezer, and you will just put some barbecue sauce and ranch seasoning packet over top. I ended up adding some water and bouillon only because I was afraid with it being frozen, I didn't want it to burn in the crock pot. I'm always weird about that. So anyway, I added a little bit of that, but if you put them in and you defrosted them for, a good portion at least, then I don't think you really have to do that step. So you just put the chicken, the barbecue sauce, and a ranch seasoning pack. It does also call for half a block of cream cheese. However, I did not do that at this time only because I want to wait for the chicken to kind of thaw before I add in the cream cheese. So again, if your chicken is thawed, you can add in that half a block of cream cheese and then get it going in the crock pot until it just kind of falls apart. One thing I really do love about these warmer days is anytime you're baking something that needs to rise, it rises so significantly quicker than it does on the cooler days. So these have doubled in size, so I'm going to get all the air pockets out and get them rolled up into like hamburger style buns. Now, I think I should have cut them one more time. I did 6 buns. However, this dough always grows so significantly in the oven and definitely after that second rise. And I always forget that every time I make this. So I think if I'm doing buns again like this, they need to be smaller. I ended up just serving these with like as half sandwiches because it was just, they were giant. So anyway, just a note, if you are making these and you're making them like me into like hamburger buns, you'll want to make them into 8 instead of 6 just because they are pretty big. However, these are one of my family's favorite things. I just recently started making these. I've made them a couple times now, and they're always such a hit whenever I make these for dinner. So these are it's a pretty simple recipe. Like if you're kind of nervous about starting with bread, this is definitely one that you can start with. It is very simple. There's not a ton of ingredients, and I feel like it's pretty foolproof, honestly. Like, I mean, I will mess with the stuff and they still turn out delicious every time. So this is a great recipe if you are just starting out with bread. So I'm going to get these going on a parchment lined paper. I'm going to put an egg wash over top of them, and then I'm going to cover them again for their second rise. I like doing that with just some plastic wrap over the top, and then I'll put them in a warm spot, which is over on my stove, for them to have their second rise. Now, this is a little later in the day. However, I like to make my bed every day, and it really doesn't matter how late it gets. I generally like to do it in the morning time. However, this day was wild. And you can't tell because a lot of it was behind the scenes, but there was a lot going on with my son being sick and us kind of going back and forth because his medicine that he had gotten from the doctor just didn't seem to be kicking in. And, it was just, it's worrisome when you have your child and they can't like really talk very well. They can't eat, stuff like that, because they can't really move their jaw. Their face is swollen and they're just in a significant amount of pain. So that's hard to deal with. But then also during this time, I ended up thinking that I got scammed. And so I was on the phone not actually scammed. I thought that someone tried to scam me. And so I was on the phone trying to deal with insurance because I thought the insurance had tried to scam me. And it turned out it wasn't the case. But I was trying to deal with that as well, and it was just like the day I ended up calling my husband, and I'm like, it has been an entire day this morning. It's just been crazy over here. So anyway, it took me a little longer to actually get in here and make my bed. So it doesn't matter. I still love getting into a nicely made bed in the evening. So even if it is later, I will still make my bed just about every day. I also had forgotten to pull down the shades and the curtains on my door. So our doors that go out to the back, those are the ones that are like the draftier ones. So I also like to usually close the curtain and stuff on those. The boys, they're on the other side of the house, but facing the back. And so they also have like a shade and a curtain on their door that goes to the back. So we like to have all of those closed, and because I had forgotten to do that, I got that done. So kind of keep in this cool air, and it ended up working out really well. Every time I do that, the house does not get to significant temperatures. Our air conditioner, I think it's just this area, we have such a hard time keeping up with the temperatures when they're this high. So anyway, got that nice and closed. I am putting the egg wash mixture on the buns again, and then I pop those into the oven. It has been a couple of hours since I put in the chicken and it's now completely thawed. So I'm going to put in the half a block of cream cheese in here. I'll put the lid on and then I'm going to let it go a little longer before I have that melted down and can shred the chicken. And while those are finishing up in the kitchen, I am going to get to this load of laundry, which thankfully was just basically towels. I always love those loads, but you know what? I have especially days like this where I just feel like I'm just mentally tired. I feel like these type of days, I don't mind laundry very much because I can sit here and mindlessly just watch something on the TV and do laundry and not have to think and give my head like the mental break that it needs. So this was definitely me this day. Like I said, it had been like an entire day, like kind of in the background. And I think mentally I was just kind of fried. I'm just like, I need a break. So I put together this laundry and it didn't take hardly any time because it was basically towels and a couple little odds and ends, but got that going and it felt good that it was done. And also it was a much needed break. So going back to the back to school discussion, how are you guys doing this back to school season? It seems crazy to even say that because, like I said, it just feels like summer just started. So it feels weird that we're already discussing that. But I know we have some homeschool families that watch. Are you busy getting ready for the new year? Have you been doing year round? I'm curious how everybody is doing, whether you are doing homeschool or public school, private school, whatever you do. How is this back to school season going for you? I think it's a little weird for us. So we take the summer off, which is kind of weird, I think, for homeschool families. However, my older two, they were in public school until 6th grade. And so it's kind of weird. They always experienced summer break and we just continued to do that because that was something that we were all used to. I really enjoy it. They really enjoy it. And so that's just something that we kind of stick to. However, we did school this year until almost July. And so we are not starting our new school year until September. It's just been kind of a weird time. And so we're starting late and it just seems weird because we still have an entire month ahead of us to enjoy our summer break because we just kind of started our summer break, which I feel like maybe is why it seems so crazy to me that summer is just about ending because we just pretty much started our summer break. But I'm curious how everyone else is doing this back to school season. All right, so we are back in the kitchen, and if you are wondering what the heck am I making now, I decided randomly that I wanted to make these cookies. I came across this cookbook. I think I found it in like a drawer or something recently, and this is one that I've picked up when I was thrift shopping one day a while ago, like probably over a year ago. I picked this up and I thought it'd be fun to cook through a cookbook that I found, like a vintage cookbook. So I pulled this out and I started going through recipes and marking different ones that I want to try in this cookbook. And then I'll ultimately be sharing that with you. I'll probably do like a whole series or something where I'm cooking through this cookbook that I found and trying out all the recipes in it. So anyway, that is something to look forward to coming up. But as I was going through and looking at the different recipes, I came across a cookie recipe that is an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie. And I am a sucker for oatmeal cookies. I do not like raisins, so if they are the ones that like fool you where you're like, oh, oatmeal chocolate chip, and it ends up being a raisin, I cannot stand those. But I love a good oatmeal chocolate chip. They probably are my absolute favorite cookie. And so when I came across this, I'm like, you know what? I want to give this a try. This was one of the very few that I actually had the ingredients for because it really required so little and they're all pretty much something that you have in your pantry. The only thing was it made a huge amount. So I ended up just halving the recipe, which ended up being about the same amount as my normal like chocolate chip cookies that I make. So if you're curious about the recipe, I will have this listed down below. I know I always get questions whenever I make my chocolate chip cookies. I always get questions about the recipe, and that is never something that I share, only because that is like a recipe that I've been making with my daughter since she was like a toddler, and so she kind of holds that recipe near and dear to her heart, and it's like our little secret. So I never share that recipe. However, this one is incredible and so similar, so I will be sharing this one. I'm going to put these on a baking sheet. I have the Hawaiian buns going right now. So once those are done, I'm gonna put these on a baking sheet and then I'll bake them. But I taste tested the dough for poison, of course, and it is really, really good. Like, this might replace my chocolate chip cookies. So good. But I wanted to show you the recipe that I'm following. So this is a cookbook I actually do plan on sharing. I'm going to probably start a little series where I cook through this cookbook. I just thought it would be a little fun, but anyway, I just randomly came across this recipe whenever I was kind of just looking through it to see what kind of stuff I would make, and I came across this recipe. This is the one I'm following, the Mrs. Fields oatmeal cookies. I absolutely love oatmeal cookies. They're one of my favorites. Just tried the dough for it and it is incredible. So I have high hopes for these cookies once they're done. But anyway, that is the recipe. And like I said, I do plan on sharing more about this cookbook. This was one I found while I was thrifting, and I plan on sharing more about it and kind of cooking through it in a series that I have coming up. But if you want a screenshot or anything to try this recipe, here it is. I have the chicken all shredded in the crock pot, so that is done. This is how the buns turned out. Like I said, they are huge, so I ended up halving them and it worked out beautifully. These are always a crowd pleaser every time I make them. These will be perfect also for like the holiday time. I know we always have the Hawaiian buns for like Thanksgiving and different holiday get-togethers, so I think these will be a great addition to the holiday season coming up. But here is how they turned out. I'm just cutting them and then I'll put the chicken mixture inside. Now, the recipe that I saw online, she did a bunch of pickles on them, and my family loves pickles, so I did cut up some pickles to put on top as well. This recipe ended up being so incredibly easy. It was insanely cheap to make. I want to say it was probably well under $10, especially if you were buying the buns yourself and not making them, but definitely under $10 to make this meal. And we had leftovers. So our family of 6, this fed our family of 6, and then we had leftovers for lunch the next day. So definitely a great meal when you're trying to save on your grocery bill, but also it is summertime and you don't want to heat up the kitchen. That's how dinner turned out, and the cookies are now out of the oven, so I'm going to get them cooling on some parchment paper, and they turned out incredible. A nice gooey soft cookie and everything that I was hoping they would be. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.